Okay, so we're back at it. One of the things I was puzzling over here was, when I did my mock-up, I pretty much I thought I nailed it as far as the wheel opening was concerned, because what I did was I laid it up under on the actual stock wheel opening, but I just basically started at the top and did a nice smooth taper that would open up the wheel opening just an inch on both sides. Well, when I came over here and I realized that my frame was going to be a little bit exposed over here, my frame rail extension, I decided to push this piece back forward a little bit. So suddenly everything kind of looked kind of screwy to me after I did that. What I didn't realize is I have an option. Some of this material can be cut away that I was worried about exposing. The bottom edge can be rounded up so that it looks more natural, but that's another thing altogether that I'll be dealing with later. Bottom line is what was bothering my eye about this whole thing. Was the fact that it seemed like the tire was further back in the wheel opening, and nothing that I could do to average out the wheel opening was seeming to make a difference. So I went ahead and I cut a pattern off the stock wheel opening and overlaid it onto this fender to see what was going on as far as the arcs and everything, and how I had everything faded out. And what I discovered was, or what dawned on me, I should say, was I forgot this is 116 plus probably about 3/8 of an inch compared to a regular Charger, which is 117. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, but if you center up the wheel opening in the back nicely, everything follows forward and stacks up to where this this bottom piece here, if it's the stock length from the door to here, is going to be 3/4 of an inch too far forward just to start off with, let alone the fact that we have bigger tires to balance out here. So what I ended up doing was realizing that as I took and I made the stock opening from the forward section, which the tire is naturally going to be back 3/4 of an inch already from the stock opening of the fender. And what that ends up doing is it means that I've got to open up the rear of the this fender over here in order for it to regain its balance from side to side. So I took the stock opening pattern that I made off of the other fender and I slid it back about an inch and created this fade out here, which turns out actually doesn't push this panel back that far. It pushes it back maybe, about 1/2 of an inch. But it seems to achieve that balance of where, the tire being back in the hole a little bit, there's more airspace on the right-hand side now, which is what, the tire wheel hole is kind of designed to do. It's designed to go vertical, arc, come across, arc, but then my finger keeps messing this up. Fade down on a kind of a slant. Now, this isn't even the actual stock slant. The stock slant's a little bit more severe, but I had to do some, steal a little bit from here and here and here in order to get this to finally blend out to where it looks halfway decent. But, it's something that, it was just bugging me. I'm like, what the heck is going on with this thing? And I realized, I've got a shorter wheelbase car here, and I'm trying to put a stock, as far as, my proportions. I'm starting with a center line, moving that one ahead an inch, moving that one back an inch, and thinking that everything's going to be okay. No, the wheel and the tire were still going to be back closer to the firewall. So, again, I brought this one back to its stock location, which also what I was missing was I had too much of a taper going on in the front over here, blending this out. So I've basically, since I've moved this back and copied the original pattern from the original wheel opening, this is more of a vertical cut, and then it arcs. So I was missing that. That was bothering me a lot. And once I did that, I could see right away that what the issue was, which was bothering the heck out of me about that thing. Anyway, I think I've got it this time, and so I'm going to go ahead and recreate the wheel opening with a sort of the same setup that I did with the with the mock-up with a 90-degree piece of 045, and then with a 1/2 inch flange on the inside, and then I'll step it and I'll put it on and then grind it off on the backside in order that I get a continuous piece that rolls around here, and it's not stopping and starting like I've got it at present. And anyway, long rambling speech, but you know, when you look at something and it just keeps bothering you and bothering you and bothering you, you can't figure out what it is. It's good to just go back to home base and see where, you know, where things are. And also, I got Randy to weigh in on it. He was, you know, he's pretty good with spotting these flaws from photographs, and so he went ahead and put his 2 cents in. And that's where we're at right now. All right, so I'm making the permanent wheel lip now, and what I've done here is I projected a line up from the mock-up, and then I backed up 1/4 of an inch. Actually, I backed up a 1/2 inch. The mock-up was a 1-inch piece, so I wanted to add a 3/4 inch lip. So I basically backed up a 1/2 inch to where I wanted to trim it, and then forward again where I could provide a step, a 1/4 inch step, so that makes my piece 3/4 of an inch instead of an inch. But at any rate, let me just show you what I'm going to do. This is basically just a 1/2 inch, and with a 3/4 inch leg here, and it's out of the 045, and it's nice and rigid, so that it'll hold the shape, help me control the shape in both directions, as far as getting it nice and flat over the tire here. And if I need to pull it out a little bit, I could shrink this area over here, and basically that'll take the whole side of the fender and this rear area out. So basically it's a good way to sneak up on it and tune it up, you know, because I can take it off and tweak it just a little bit if there's some unusual spot, and I'll weld it on here, and then later on when I've got the fender off, I'll grind this lip off, and it'll be a continuous weld all the way around. Anyway, this is what I'm up to right now, putting this piece on. Just got one Cleco holding it on right now. I'd like to be able to weld it on right now, but I can't. So I gotta basically that's what it looks like when it's on, and of course this will be tucked in a little bit right there. Anyway, I've got to do the front. I'll get it all Clecoed on, and then I'll show it to you then. All right, so that's what it looks like with those wheel edges Clecoed into place. Now I have to get to work on that, see how that top exhauster is going to be, as far as how difficult it is to be placed up there, and if there's any interferences and things like that. So I'll have to take the side of this fender back off so I can see what's going on underneath there while I work on that. Okay, so I just went ahead and cut a hole in this top based on where I had it mocked up before. On its bottom side you can see there's these tiny little clips. Basically the majority of it's held in with these 2 inserts, and I'll have to have some sort of a ledge back here to attach it to. But in the meantime, this is a 1/4 inch roughly landing here where this goes to. So basically I cut out the shape, or I drew the shape, and then I added a 1/4 inch to it so that it fits firmly against the front edge. I had to do a little bit of shrinking to this piece here to flatten it out, because there's a big shape here and another reverse shape here. So I shrunk the metal down a little bit so it's more of a straight edge. This rolls a little bit in this direction, which complies with this, which is nice. But here where it changes direction, so I had to kind of get it all to go in one direction. So a little bit of shrinking there. And what else I've done is now I've cut out beyond here by about 1.5 inches, and I'll be coming down in here with a piece of metal. But before I do that, I've got a little piece of metal here that I'm going to create some vertical walls for this to land on. Now they're curved in this direction because this thing's got a curve that curves down. I'll have to come around here and do the same thing just to get me up to about here to transition, and then I'll have to come in with a second piece of metal and overlay that, which there'll be a lot of excess on the back side. But once I get that all done and welded together, I'll take that out and cut away the excess. But in the meantime, I've got to create an area for this to land on the sides like this, and then we'll go on from there. All right, so I went ahead and I bent these 3/16 by about 3/4 of an inch to about 1/4 at the ends, and then I shrunk them to fit this shape here. And I made them basically a little bit taller than they needed to be so that I could put them in place, tack them at the front edge with this out, and then with this in, I raised it up until it hit solidly on this rim here, creating a floor on either side. Did the same thing on this side. Basically, you can see it's that much higher. Tacked it in the front first, and then raised it up until it started to lift this up a little bit and tack this into place. And now I've got 3 sides of this are stabilized. So it might be a little tricky getting it in and out because basically it's got 2 snap tabs on there, but they don't look like they're that forgiving. It looks like you put these in once and then you leave them in, which makes it tricky to take them out to paint because the front edge is only held in by these little tabs. Might have to come up with something different there. Anyway, proceeding from here. All right, that's what it's looking like so far. So it's got a tapered floor that goes down on either side here. And now I've got to do a blend panel to bring it all up on this end over here. All right, so this is what this is looking like. Putting this filler piece in here. So the transitions up to the top of the fender. Where this will have to be installed, there's 2 tiny little hooks on the front here. I'm going to have to cut them a little deeper. Basically, this is pulled forward so that they hook. On the underside, there's going to be 2 bolt-up sections. In other words, they'll have to be pulled forward in whole, and then to uninstall it, it gets shoved back, which I can't do really easily here with one hand. And once it's in the back position, it lifts out, and those are the 2 bolt-ups that'll be on the bottom side over here. They have to be reached through the wheel hole if it has to come off after the fender's on. But anyway, that goes down in there and then pulls forward and catches those 2 little nibs on either corner. Like I said, I'm going to have to get a Zizz wheel and cut them a little bit deeper just for insurance purposes before I put my bolt locations there on the bottom side. Anyway, that's what it's looking like. Okay, so this is what this is looking like so far. You know, it's slightly rolled off and then into the fender, and then this reconciles with this odd shape over here. Brings it back up to that level. On the mock-up, I ran it way back into here, and it caused a lot of issues as far as where to make the transition over here. It became very, very odd looking. So I figured I just would make it a very short transition here. What I'm going to try to do also is out in front of these scoops on the Hellcat hoods, there's a ridge, and to add a little bit of interest to this feature so it doesn't look like it was just plopped in there, I'm going to try with this hydraulic tubing, starting with this hydraulic tubing to work a small swale here and then a little blend going out into the front, so this doesn't look like it's that this is all to the backside, that there's a balance here on the forward section that transitions this piece in. Anyway, that's what I'm going to try. We'll see how it works out. All right, before I weld this all up, I just wanted to show you what's going on here. This blue line right here is where the grill bumps up to. So what I wanted to do was create a fade down from this little piece of 1/4 inch hydraulic tubing that I bent around here to create this little ridge. I've sanded off the bottom of this in a taper over here down to nothing, so it blends into the fender. It's sitting right on top of the fender right around here. Again, it blends off on this edge over here. And then I took a piece of 023 sheet metal just because it was easier to manipulate here, and run this on the inside over here to create this swale. And then on the outside I got a piece of 045, and just because this is such a small piece, I didn't want it to disappear when I welded it, so I manipulated that around here to take up this irregular, the way this rolls in and then it rolls up, to reconcile it with this. This pretty much almost follows. There's a crown in this grill piece that goes from side to side. So I wanted to follow that as much as possible with this top ridge here, and then close up the gap with this little strip over here. Now I'll weld this all up and grind it up and all of that good stuff. But first, before I do that, I wanted to build it. It's only tacked at 4 places, so I can cut it back off and prime underneath, because these two, it'll be an enclosure here. So I'll drill a couple of holes in there, let any moisture or condensation out, and then I will weld this to the top of the fender. Anyway, that's where it's going. Okay, just wanted to see what this piece looks like off the car. There's that 1/4-inch tubing there, which will create the round top on this piece when it's all welded up. And we got to go paint it now. All right, so that's that piece welded up and put into place. Have to still do some of the back side, but I'll have to do that off the car. But anyway, that's what that looks like. It's kind of hard to see with all the different light lines with the metal. But anyway, I went ahead and went along this top edge and preliminarily put some tech screws in to hold this piece together with the edge of the fender in place, so that when I take this top piece off, I can weld it from the bottom side, this piece to this piece over here, so it looks clean on the inside over here. I'll have to prime both sides, and then screw it back together, put that together, and that'll be hopefully the top piece done and ready to install. Actually, I have to do one more thing to this. I have to finish putting in the bolt-up flange on this side over here so that this thing is secured. And anyway, so that's what it's looking like with the scallop in the hood, excuse me, in the top of the fender for the exhauster. All right, so this is the top of the fender upside down, and it's hard to see. There's 2 little plastic nibs here that basically I cut a little deeper into the actual frame in order to get it to slide onto the sheet metal. Basically, you slide it in backwards first, and then shove it forward, and it grabs these 2 little nibs here. And now what I'm going to do is, now that it's all the way forward, I've got these two bolt-up points here. So I've made these brackets. I'll bolt them into place, and I'll weld them over to the back side over here. And then I'll also bring a leg down here so that this doesn't flex. Anyway, that's how I intend to attach those things permanently. All right, this is what this is looking like. I got the 2 brackets welded in here, and once the holes are aligned, which I basically did a little shimmy in with this, just carefully not messing the threads up to make sure that they were good to go. In order to push it forward, I basically had just taken, dropped this in here and kind of just give it a little torque like that. Shove this forward so that those little indentions catch on the sheet metal in the front. Then I have to make up this, which is basically this shield here. Goes on top. And then I still have to engineer a little clip for the front, for a front attachment point, to make sure it doesn't, vibrate and wobble around. But basically, then these go through here. 1032s, fine thread, and basically tighten down to the bottom of the fender like that. And the reason I have these pieces in here, a couple reasons. So you don't see all this drivel in here through the grill. It's pretty obvious, you could see it all under there. So it's kind of a decorative shield in one way. The other thing is, with my car, because the lights are mounted inside the nose, even with the excuse me, even with the doors open, there's a lot of reflectivity on the inside of the nose, even though it's painted all black, that when at night I turn on the lights. My exhausters are the old style, the reverse scoop with a very small grill about this, but they're lit up because of the fact that there's light traveling through this whole cavity here. This is a pretty big area here, so I don't have any dams to keep the light from flowing on mine, but it doesn't bother me. It's dim, but it's apparent. This is going to probably cast a little bit more light, and you don't want that in the driver's eye. So basically that shield also serves the purpose of trying to block some of that light that would be coming back from the headlights inside the nose up through this exhauster hole. But we don't want to restrict it to where it's not actually an exhauster, so it's just kind of a flow through right here. Anyway, just thought I'd show you that. All right, so that's what it looks like with the little blockout panel underneath there. Still has some depth, as you can see. It's about an inch away from the grill. But it pretty much reduces the idea of getting any light through there. And from seeing all the nonsense underneath the fender. Anyway. Yeah, I was looking for a little piece of material to stop something up, and, going through my scrap bin. I used to be able to find me every once in a while head down in the scrap bin at work pulling stuff out, but I found this thing here. This is just this was a fender adjuster. Basically, this held the fender out in the front of the car to a certain width, and as you can see here, there's a designation on here. That's the 5 car, and that's chassis number 561. That's the left front, and that's kind of cool. Memories. Okay, before I put these pieces together, I made sure I primed between both layers, and then I went ahead and I screwed them back together as they were on the car, and then I went about welded them on the inside here, so there's no welds on the other side. It's nice and clean. Anyway, moving along. All right, so while I got the fender off, thought it'd be a good time to get down here and finish off this area underneath the fender. It's the end of the rocker. It's open here. It's open up on top over here. I just got done welding it along the bottom here, filling in this area over here, and securing it to the bottom where the pinch weld is, near the pinch welds. I just made up this piece out of 045. It's primed on the backside with the weld-through primer, and that's going to fit in, and in the process of whittling it down to get it fit in there to finish out that run right there. So, a lot of stuff that you have to do that nobody's ever going to see. All right, so that's just finished up and primed, and so now I can mount my fender structure back on here and move on with the side of the fender, and that's what's next. All right, so I dusted in with a little black zinc chromate primer before I put this on here, because I'm going to do the outside of the fender when I'm done with the zinc chromate, and I didn't want to tape off all of this interior stuff here just to put a dusting on there. Anyway, just to protect from flash rust, and anyway, that's what that's looking like. Okay, so that's what it looks like with the side piece welded to the top piece now. I've got to do a little work on the this front piece here, and create some connection points here, some permanent connection points, before I can add my wheel opening, and so we'll go on from there. All right, before I go ahead and weld this onto the fender, I had to do a couple of things. One thing I had to do is bend this flange up at the bottom here, so that basically stiffens up the bottom shape here. And also I have to add this flange, which will be the attachment flange. Once this is in place, I can put something on that front support structure where I can through bolt from the bottom side up into this through this flange and into a piece of 5/8 with some weld nuts. Okay, so I've got everything spotted together here. Got my perimeter, my wheel opening, and this final panel over here. And I basically I left it loose over here. So I can just work everything in where it needed to go. Basically what I'm going to end up doing is just taking another piece of this 5/8 tubing. I'm going to be coming across here, picking up these two pilot holes here, and I'll drill through and put some weld nuts on that. I'll show you that when I do it. Then I'm going to come over from here down to here to basically square that off. I'll have to put another piece like this on the other side, even though I needed this to hold this bracket, but I don't really need anything on that side. But I will need something to loop down and kind of hold this fender in or out, depending on where I want it to go. But laying the metal in that step, you can imagine how difficult that would be if that was an evenly gapped, just a butt joint with nothing backing it up. So right now that I've got it tacked on there, I can go along and I could, work on it and, tweak it a little bit to get it straight with the panel wherever it needs to be tweaked, because it's solidly, there's that 1/4-inch flange behind it right now. So that once it's all where it needs to go, then I can go back and I can weld it up. Then I'll grind that flange off of the back to make for a pretty good solid joint there. Anyway, I thought I'd show you that before I get it all welded up. That's what it's looking like right now. Okay, so I've got this all tacked in. I'll have to weld it up real good once I get this whole frame out of here. Once all this is, hopefully I haven't welded anything to the car. Anyway, this piece was already here to mount up this bracket, so I just did a little extender here. The other side I'll just do a continuous piece all the way out, and that basically holds, that's like a spreader. It helps hold this. It's pinned over here, it's welded to the frame here, and then this basically controls the angle on back to keep the fender in and out. And it bolts up right through the bottom of this this little, it comes up the flange this way, and then it comes back out this way. So I have a hidden bolt here. Anyway, hidden from the side, that is. So moving on, it was very close when I first set the fender here. So I basically, so far, I cranked the wheel out, and I had to do a little adjusting. I had to cut this loose and straighten this out in this direction to pull this out, because right here is the close spot. And I've had to go from here all the way back to here and kind of just turn it up. See, it's 90 degrees here. As it gets up to the top, it starts to kick up like this in this direction over here. Anyway, that's where we're at right now, and we'll go on from here. Okay, with the fender back off of the car, I have to bend this lip over finally and tack that on. You see my points of attachment. I've got the two on the bottom side over here that bolt up through the bottom here. I've got this point here that hangs through that original bolt placement over here. And on this side over here, on the bottom, I have this flange that bolts straight up from the bottom into that 5/8 bar right there. And then, of course, I've got my mounting locations across the top here. So anyway, I still have to make the final piece that goes on here at like 70 thousandths, because that's the through bolt area where the nose will bolt through this area here. But you can see on the back side over here where I marked it, this is the place where tire wants to interfere the most. So I'm basically got to have to kind of roll this up a little bit here. See how I've already started to do this to give it that final little bit of clearance that it needs. Now, I don't know what a new set of tires is going to do on this thing. It might call for a slightly narrower, maybe a 1/2 inch narrower wheel in the front, but it's clearing right now. But anyway, that's where we're at with this. Okay, I'm trying a little something different here with this this joint here. Normally what I would do is with a joint like this is I would just go ahead and weld that all up, and then I would grind this off on the back side, which I could still do, but that's a lot of excess material to have to grind off. As you know, abrasives are the most expensive part of these projects, believe it or not. So rather than do that, what I've decided to do is, this worked out really well because as I went along, I used a 40 thousandths thick cutoff wheel to make the joint between the two pieces of metal consistent. And as I went along, I just kind of cut more and more along the way, so any irregularities in the top piece or the bottom piece, so the gap didn't widen and then close up along the way and cause for irregular weld here. So what I'm going to do here is, since this is already tacked every 1.5 inches here, as I came from the top side, as you can see, and I cut through, creating that 40 thousandths thick gap. Now I'm on the back side, and I'm just removing at the tack welds the rest of the metal and breaking that off, and that way I'll have 40 thousandths opening all the way down here for a more consistent gap between the panels before I go ahead and weld it up. We'll see if it works. Okay, so just got a little zinc chromate primer on there, which has basically no buildup. It's just to protect it from getting rusty, a little flash rust on it. So that's pretty much what it looks like, all welded up and put into place. Can hardly see the wheel opening at this point. Black on black. Anyway, I might have to tighten up this a little bit. Once I smashed everything flat on this fender here, it kind of was a little wider than I like, but anyway, so it's better that it is a little bit bigger than a little bit smaller, because a little bit smaller would call for grinding on the edges, which would just thin out the metal. So I might add just a little bit of little thin rod, maybe a 1/16 of an inch to the edge of this door here. Close that up. We'll see how that all goes. Anyway, that's what it looks like with the exhauster. You can see the convoluted shape I had to deal with over here, as far as taking this sweep and then sweeping it out over here now that it's a little bit in paint, and also this little S curve that I had to make in order to get this to blend back into the door because it's out so far. At any rate, it's out a full 2 inches from what stock would be at the tire face itself. Now, it's a good thing we didn't start out with a wide body, which was what the first intention was to get a wide body, which is basically nothing but there's some substructure clearances in the back, and they're different fenders because they bolt the little they've got little eyebrows that go on to extend out over the with the wider tires and wheels that are on them, but they're basically just a different set of wheels. But it would have been another 1.5 inches or so wider than this, and I don't see how that would have worked out. It would have looked very cartoonish at that point. So at any rate, it's time to move on to the other side, which this took me about 2.5 weeks. So if you don't hear from me in about 2.5 weeks, you come look for me. I might be underneath the car somewhere. At any rate, appreciate everybody for watching, and we'll move on to the next one.